We're live. It is Thursday, October 29th, 2020, 5 o'clock p.m. The sacrifice to the platform gods was accepted, and we were therefore able to go live on time. Kate, however, has not slept in 48 hours, 36 hours. So we are going to go, we are going to see whether it's going to be a giant experiment in whether we can get Kate to believe things that aren't true and that her normal sharp-witted self would say, don't be ridiculous. And we are once again making fun of the election because if you don't laugh, you cry. And so with us to do that are Popehat and Matthew Miller, whose crisis PR firm, as of this week, does represent the coronavirus. And to the extent that the corona...
Not the worst entity I've ever represented.
To the extent the corona...
Ding, ding.
I just want to say a good word in Matt's favor. I sometimes tweet dryly news headlines about the coronavirus from the coronavirus's point of view. And the other day I tweeted one and somebody responded to me, does the coronavirus have a crisis PR firm? And I responded that I thought he was tapping Matt Miller, and Matt liked the tweet, which I thought reflected Yes, which I thought was the appropriate response.
Yeah.
Of course, if the coronavirus gets into trouble with the law, he, she, it, or they will hire Ken White to represent it before the grand jury, where, of course, defense lawyers are not permitted. Ken, tell me something. Have you received a subpoena as counsel to the coronavirus?
I have not. My badly misunderstood client, who is spoken ill of left and right, has not received a subpoena. Really can't say anything about it. Don't want to speculate. COVID. That's all anyone hears. As we've heard, it's just unacceptable.
Do you think if the coronavirus were to face indictment at this point, the negative attention that has been generated by the president against the coronavirus would prevent the convening of an impartial jury?
Oh.
That's a good idea.
Good question.
It's kind of, you got Trump against the coronavirus.
Doesn't that speak well for the coronavirus?
Well, yeah. Who's more unpopular? Does Matt represent the coronavirus for PR purposes because he got first choice in that contest? So
I got to choose between the virus and Trump, and I figured the virus would actually pay me.
Yeah,
exactly. More likely to pay the bill. Very good, Matt. All right, so let's talk about.
One of you is the serious one, and one of you is the funny one.
Yeah, and we're going to have a vote, a poll at the end to figure out.
I think, Ken. We're going to have a poll as this goes. So you just, and people can change their minds.
All right, so Matt, let's imagine that the coronavirus came to you and said, I have a PR problem. I need you to make a comprehensive PR strategy to get me out of this. What's the line that the coronavirus should be taking here?
Well, stop killing people, first of all. That's kind of a first thing. But as a serious matter, people misunderstand PR, which is lots of times crisis comms advisors, what you're telling companies, individuals, deadly viruses. It's not just how to explain what they're doing, but stop doing this terrible... The reason why everyone hates you is you keep doing this terrible thing. Stop doing this terrible thing. Then we can explain what a good misunderstood virus you actually are.
Why do you think that happens? And also, Ken, why are you shaking your head yes? Do you agree with this? Because do you feel like you do the same thing as a defense attorney?
Oh, absolutely. A huge part of being a defense attorney is cut that shit out and shut up.
Right.
Would you please just stop doing things? I literally say this in initial client conversations. Stop doing things. Stop it. Stop doing anything. Just stop. It's huge.
Okay, but the coronavirus the essence of who it is that it's a lethal virus that kills people. So, I mean, it's going to like not take your advice on that even worse than Rudy Giuliani or something. And so, you know, it seems to me you got to build a crisis PR operation around the client that you have, not the client that you wish you had.
You can always quit.
I mean,
Honestly,
think about
no,
it. It's a very like sunny disease. It's like, you know, I don't know. Anyways, can I ask my question to?
Yeah. No, this is
Okay.
a rip-roaring good one.
Okay.
Ken.
I can't tell whether
God.
you're being sarcastic or not.
No, I love this question.
Oh, because I'm really out of it right now. Your Twitter name changing is iconic. You are like, you have the Popehat symbol, which is just like this like shining beacon in my news feed. And then like, but it's always something different. And I would say a solid 80% of the time I have no idea what it's in reference to.
It's because you don't read the news, Kate.
I know. There's a reason for that. Have you seen the news lately, Ben?
Yeah, but if you want to understand Ken's Twitter handle, you got to read the news.
I know. But Ken, like, how often do you change this thing? Is there a ritual to it? Like, do people suggest things? Can I suggest things? How long have you been doing this? When did the Twitter name become kind of like an AOL instant messenger status message that like it's like that people like put their like go and vote or song lyric or Halloween joke into? I just don't understand.
So I don't know how it went generally with Twitter, but I noticed that other people sometimes changed their name, a lot of it for like Halloween or Christmas or whatever. And I just started doing it sometime during this 4-year trash fire, and to make some sort of mordant comment on whatever was happening that day. And I have a rule that I don't do it more than once a day. Sometimes in 2020, it's impossible to abide by that rule.
Do you write them down and save them for later?
No, I'm really not that. I don't devote that much time to it. No, when it occurs to me, or when something hits me, or when someone suggests something. So.
I like that.
Yeah.
All right. Where are we going with this? Matt, what's on your mind these days? Are you in a stupor? Are you excited about next week? Are you feeling terrible? What's your state of mind?
Excited, anxious, but not anxious because I'm nervous about the results. I mean, somewhat nervous about the results, but I feel, it's good. I feel as good about the outcome as you can feel in an election. There's always some measurable, uncertainty. But honestly, like, I'm just ready to get this over with. Ready, this is like an election. I've been waiting 4 years for this. Like since the day he won, it's like, my God, it's a 4-year countdown till the next election day, and we're gonna have to endure a lot of bullshit and a lot of rough stuff between now and then. Obviously, we have. And it's almost surreal that we're at this point where we can hopefully move on, knowing that, as you point out with your tweets every day, that we still have another almost 3 months.
I believe 78 days from election to...
Right.
Matt, you're a little quiet. I don't know where your mic is, so I don't know if it matters.
Let me change. I'll do this.
But
how about you, Ken? How are you feeling?
Grim overall. So for a variety of reasons. Leaving aside what's actually going to happen and who's going to win, there's the prospect of litigation and tumult over the result for God knows who knows how long. I mean, it really doesn't seem like 20 years, but I distinctly remember, Thanksgiving and still watching stuff on TV with Bush versus Gore and all that. I also think that it's not just the election, that all this bitterness and hatred and nastiness and legal machinations are really bubbling up and revealing some deeper gulfs in the society, and they're not going to be magically filled in by a vote, no matter which way it goes. So I think we'll have some hard times for a while, and it falls to us to fall back on things that are important to us, the values we care about, things we like doing, friends, and use those as measures to deal with it.
Except we can't do all the things we like to do. Can't see friends, can't travel. That's kind of the problem.
Yeah, well, Mike, I don't really like people, though, so it works out for me. So fine.
So, but I'm curious, what happens to all the president's lawyers if the president loses? Does that go out with the president, or does it become all the former president's lawyers? Is it...
It's to be decided. I mean, I think that certainly there's going to be continuing litigation through the rest of this presidential term, no matter who wins. If Trump wins, I'm confident it will go on. If Biden wins, I think it may go on in some form or other. I think there will continue to be Trump-adjacent litigation, and I think it's perfectly possible there will be plenty of litigation that's sort of in the same vein related to the Biden administration. So I think we should hold Biden's feet to the fire too on any issues that wind up in litigation. So
it's true, although the volume of Biden litigation, I mean, there's not going to be 100 personal suits. There's not going to be Westfall Act questions about, statements. There's not, I mean, just the, and then his lawyers are most unlikely to be indicted.
I do expect there to be fewer questions regarding the campaign finance status of paying hush money to adult actresses, but nonetheless,
the likelihood of a Ron Klain indictment strikes me as relatively minimal.
Right.
I had this moment. I think it was like the New York Times today had a headline on somebody's op-ed, or maybe it was Twitter, but somebody said, "I can't believe I have spent like so much wasted time thinking about Donald Trump for like 4 years." And I know that you make fun of me for not watching the news, but that is like, honest to God, one of like my small like acts of defiance that I can know like will make my life slightly better, is just to like not watch. I was thinking about it, and like I have no memory of like a president being this like big or like taking up this much space in my mind, like, or like my day-to-day life or anything, any of it. And I know that that is not a new thing, and people have said how incredibly insane he has been in the office and in terms of like enacting out and everything else. But I'm just curious if you guys have thoughts on that. Like, are you feeling that too? Just, I mean, I know we're all tired, but do you have any memory anywhere near the type of like profile that he has commanded and forced us like to deal with for 4 years?
No, absolutely not. And it's not just, it's not just all his scandals that make it into the news. It's that he barges his way into every conversation the country has. You watch the Oscars. The Oscars are about Donald Trump. The NFL is about Donald Trump. He has this way of inserting himself into every part of your life. And I personally can't wait to, rid myself of that to the extent possible. It's not like he's going to disappear from the face of the earth. He'll have a way of still forcing ourselves into our lives. It's his greatest talent. But I think, the personal, that kind of personal exhaustion you feel and that I feel and probably everyone feels, I do think is actually a real political problem for him too. You see it come up over and over again in focus groups and in some of the polling data. People are just tired of his bullshit. They're just tired of the nonstop bullshit from him. And I think, like the subtext of I feel like the subtext of the Biden presidency or the Biden campaign has always been just a return to normalcy. And that's not how he phrases it, but you just won't have to think about me every day.
No, that is like, I think that's like 100% it. Ken and Ben, do you guys, I know Ben's thoughts on this a little bit, but I'm curious about Ken.
So I agree. I think there's, an appeal to the Biden sort of, what if America didn't have to be batshit crazy all the time type of low-key approach. But again, I'm a pessimist to begin with, but I wonder if we aren't fundamentally broken in some ways where we're going to be batshit crazy for a while, even if it's not specifically surrounding Trump. if the media has trained itself to be, if not about Trump, then about QAnon and whoever Trump replacements are around, and just crazy stuff that they can do wall to wall instead of the sort of stuff we used to do. So, I mean, I'm kind of looking for ways that we can all, if we have a Biden presidency, return to focus on the types of stories that aren't getting told as much, things that don't get as much attention, and more substantive discussions. You know, what part each of us can play in returning to making those a thing.
So I want to throw out a radical idea. It's going to sound like I'm joking, and I just want to say no part of me is joking. I'm completely serious about this. What if you imagine that Democrats take the Senate, maybe with a vote or two to spare, so that they have a working majority for a bunch of things. They might have to nuke the filibuster to do this, but that's doable. The Republicans have already done a fair bit of nuking of process. You could have, and we live in a world now that's closer to party government than we ever have in the history of the Republic, or certainly in any of our lifetimes. So a relatively cohesive Democratic Party decides that it wants the first 2 years of a Biden administration to be about policy. And therefore, in the spirit of what Ken just said, it passes blizzards of legislation, exactly the opposite of what the Trump first 2 years of the Trump, where they couldn't get anything through Congress. Both houses of Congress make a decision that they are going to send a lot of shit to the president's desk, dominate the conversation with bills. And they're actually going to, there's going to be a little bit of shock and awe on the legislative side to force the Republicans to engage in bill criticism rather than sort of anti-vax shit or scandal mongering. Just rock them back on their heels with the volume of legislation. Matt, what do you think? Is it plausible? And could you shift the conversation in a Ken White direction just by legislating?
So you can. I think that's the idea. I mean, I think clearly that's the idea that both Pelosi and Schumer have, how they conceive of their leadership of the House and Senate. Schumer's case, if he becomes the leader. The problem with using that to dominate the conversation, it's not all, it is not all just kind of rainbows and fairy tales when you're passing legislation. When you have a Senate coalition that has to encompass Bernie Sanders and Joe Manchin, and when you have a 0 vote majority or when you can lose either 0 votes or 1 vote, depending on how many senators you capture, it's easy for that shock and awe to drag out into a land war in Asia. And the best example of that is the healthcare bill from 2009. So I think that's clearly what Democrats want to do. There is a real recognition in my party now that, when you have the first 2 years of administration, if you're so lucky as to control both houses of Congress, treat it like you'll only have it for 2 years, because history says you most likely will only have it for 2 years, and do everything you can. And now, especially with the progression the Republican Party has taken, just don't listen to any of their complaints at all. Just roll right over them, because their complaints aren't serious. They're not rooted in good faith.
I will say, though, that this year is the 2022 Senate map is uncommonly good for Democrats. Yeah. And there may be a counter-cyclical quality to it just because the map so favors Democrats.
There is for the Senate, but it's the House that tends to flip. Well, I mean, we held the Senate in 2010, not because the map was great, but because we had a 9-seat majority. It's the House that you worry about just flipping. Although redistricting could shore some of that up. Yeah.
So Ben, but whose interest are you talking about holding, though? I have to ask. So there's Congress and policy wonks and talking heads, and then there's America. So I'm not sure I could see this kind of thing where Congress gets really busy with lots of bills, and if it has a strong enough Democratic majority, gets a lot of them through. I'm not sure if that holds the national interest, though, which might be fine.
So
Like the
I
Onion had
actually,
that. The
I
Onion
actually
had that
really
headline after.
Sorry, go ahead.
The Onion had that headline after 9/11. Nation longs to worry about stupid shit again. And it wasn't like, nation longs to worry about housing policy again. So I think everyone's hungry to go back to stuff, but I think for the vast majority of people, they're hungry to go back to, the Kardashians or something, and not to serious policy arguments. Now, maybe it would be a good thing if everyone in the country paid less attention to politics, if this is what everyone paying attention to politics all the time looks like. It looks pretty awful.
So look, I think it's totally fine if people want to focus on Kim Kardashian. That doesn't bother me a bit. The question is what they're talking about when they're expressing their political energy. And, if you go back to the first 2 years of the Obama administration, the political discussion of the Obama in the first 2 years of the Obama administration was focused on exactly two things, other than the beer summit for a week and a half. One was spending, which was what gave rise to the Tea Party, and the second was the healthcare bill. And look, I think you could have a first year of this administration, of a Biden administration and a Democratic Senate that looked like this. First month is all about coronavirus relief and getting done the residual stuff that didn't get done this year. Second month, voting rights, making it easy for people to vote without standing in line. I don't think you're going to have a problem between Joe Manchin and in any part of the Democratic caucus about that. Third month, you have a big healthcare fight. Fourth month, maybe. Some of these things will take a little bit longer. But if you can really set the agenda by actually passing these things, and the other side is, they're not going to be talking about Hunter Biden's emails. They're going to be talking about the terrible bills that you're passing. And these are all winning issues for the side that does them.
No, it's a great. Do you think it's like are you imagining it like an FDR 100 days type of thing? Like kind of that kind of energy?
You can't do anything that fast anymore. So I don't think the number of days is what matters. But I do think the idea that Pelosi and Schumer should be on the same page about what they're passing. Everything takes longer in the Senate than in the House. So she should be a month and a half ahead of him and sending him a blizzard of stuff, and he should be forcing stuff through. And I don't see why the strategy shouldn't be let us force everybody every day, to the extent they think about politics, to think about the bills we're passing.
Two things about the time. It doesn't have to take that long in the Senate. They control their rules. They can change their rules. And I think they're likely to change their rules, certainly around the filibuster. And the second thing about that is I think there's also, there's part of the things that are just technical rules. You get rid of the filibuster. It allows you to bring stuff up. And part of it is the norms of moving things through committee and taking time. And I do think there's a bit of a recognition in the party after the Coney Barrett nomination that, you know what, if they can move a justice through in 4 weeks, why can't we move things through with rapid fire hearings and moving quickly to the floor and not taking the time that we've always have done before? The problem with it in the Senate is that there's just only so much floor time, and at the same time, you're going to have to be confirming nominees. You have cabinet nominees and deputy secretaries, and that, all these nominations you have to fill in the first 6 months that do take up a fair amount of time.
Yeah.
Good point.
I have a more lighthearted question. Well, actually, I have two questions. One is for Ben, and I wonder, maybe you've already answered it by just saying what you said and proposing what you said, which is like, I'm curious, you wrote Unmaking the Presidency with Susan Hennessy. If you could add another chapter to the book now, like what would you, and like what would it be about? And then I guess, Matt and Ken, I want to hear what you're doing for Election Day and night.
So the answer to your question very simply is that there is a missing chapter from the book, which is a chapter about crisis management. And the first 3 years of the Trump presidency were blissfully free of non-Trump manufactured crises. That is, we had crises all the time, but they were always created by the president himself. And so Susan and I didn't really have a chance to treat the question of how the Trumpian expressive presidency would respond to an actual crisis. We hypothesized the problem, and we sort of imagined the problem, but we didn't have a good case study of it because he was really lucky. And like all luck, it ran out eventually, and he was and this would have been a hell of a chapter. To bring together all the threads of the other chapters of the book into how the expressive presidency doesn't work in a crisis situation.
Yeah.
So what are you guys doing for election night?
I've got court on election day, and then I'm thinking I'm going to go for a hike or do something else that takes me off the grid. I think that if I could just completely remove myself from modern technology for 12 hours or so, that I would be a better person for it. And plus, it would help, silence that little voice that says, if I'm not on Twitter, then things can't, move forward. Obviously, we're all essential. What if I'm not there? Things might not get resolved. So
you're an essential worker, Popehat.
So
wait, are you saying you're not an essential worker?
I need
I'm not
to
talking about
accept
your
that I'm
defense
not.
work. I'm talking about Twitter.
I'm thinking of taking a break from technology for the day and maybe looking at the results once in the evening and getting
I'll believe it when it happens, man.
Yeah, I
I'm
know.
gonna remind you of this.
So, Matt, are you going to be on the network, or are you going to be home drinking?
I'll be home. I mean, election day is so, I've worked dozens of campaigns, and I hate election day, mainly because I'm a press person. I don't do field. My job is never to turn out voters. So election day is always sitting around just being nervous. And there's not, as a press person, there's nothing you can really do on election day that's useful. Election night, I will just be home once I get my kids to bed, watching results like everyone else, and hoping we know that night. I predict that no matter how the night goes, I'll have a better night than I did 4 years ago. My wife and I were at Hillary's victory party in New York. Nothing could be worse than that. That was a miserable evening.
So we all.
So, Matt, one important question about this: if you had a choice between Lindsey Graham losing and Mitch McConnell losing.
I thought that was going to be way dirtier for some reason.
But the other one gets to win. What's the?
But it's not even close. McConnell easily. McConnell is the force for so much darkness in American politics. A different kind of darkness than Trump. It would be, and McConnell has broken the Senate more, is responsible for the kind of current breaking of the Senate more than any other member of that body. It wouldn't even be close. Also, I have a prediction about Lindsey Graham that if he wins and Biden wins and it's a Democratic Senate, in 6 months, Lindsey Graham will have remade himself as the greatest deal maker with Democrats and try to forget the Lindsey Graham, because he has a need to be in the middle of the action, and he'll figure out that the action for him is not being this fire-breathing Trumpy anymore. It's to go back to being a deal maker with Democrats, and he'll try to pretend like none of this ever happened.
So slimy. Like you.
I totally disagree. I completely agree with your point about Lindsey Graham. I totally disagree with your point about Mitch McConnell. And I want to explain my theory of the case and have you respond to it. I want him to be the hapless, powerless minority leader as one bill after another passes and one unacceptable nominee after another passes, as the court enlargement bills get passed and they can do nothing. I want him to be the Senate minority leader who has to stand there and give speeches that about how norms are being violated and the Senate traditions are being violated, knowing that he created every single rule that they're operating under.
Okay, so
that-
this is to the pain, right? From Princess
Yeah, like,
Bride, not to the
literally, like,
death,
that
but
was,
to the
like,
pain, right?
That was like, oh my god, great reference. Hold on, wait, I wanted, so Ken, what would you do? To the pain, or?
This is like the joke when you're in the room with the 3 people and the 2 bullets, but yeah,
That's a joke.
I have to agree that you got to take Mitch McConnell out, though. I mean, Darth Vader's more personally irritating, but the Emperor's the one that you want to throw down the reactor shaft in the final analysis.
Palpatine.
All right.
Like, I was just laughing before, Ben, because do you remember when we had Larry Lessig on and like Matt's like just venom about like Mitch McConnell, and like Larry had been on the show and he just like out of nowhere just like kind of like held forth about how Mitch McConnell was destroying America for like a solid like 3.5 minutes, like unprovoked. And it was just like this insanely beautiful monologue. And everyone was just like, wow, did we just like get a TED talk on like getting rid of Mitch McConnell by Larry Lessig? Like,
I want Mitch McConnell to have to live in the minority in the Senate that he created. Christopher Argyris, all the way from London.
All right. So, in the spirit of continuing this retributive justice fantasy, what chances do you give post-presidency Trump being charged with at least state crimes, if not federal crimes, that he can't preemptively pardon himself from, but cutting a deal to avoid jail time? And then, as a follow-up question, would you say that a New York State Department of Corrections photo would be inside the jail photo would be the only time you would ever see Trump with his real hair?
Excellent.
That's a good question.
So, I think Trump is going to pardon himself and his family members and cronies if he's voted out now, whether publicly or not. I think that even if he didn't, I'm skeptical that there are going to be federal cases against him, simply because I think the Department of Justice isn't going to want to make the agenda for Biden's term the prosecution of Donald Trump, which it very much would be. I think that New York is probably going to take some sort of shot at him. How good a shot it is remains to be seen. I think it might be a mediocre one from what I've seen so far. And that's going to kind of just drag out for a long time and you know, give me podcast subjects but not be the sort of thing we've been seeing with, you know, the impeachment and the Mueller investigations and things like that.
So can I ask a quick follow-up to that and then have Matt, you address it and then Matt address any of this that he wants, because I know he has thoughts on this subject. But it seems to me that if Trump preemptively pardons himself, that increases the likelihood, not decreases the likelihood of a federal indictment of Donald Trump, in the sense that the only mechanism that the federal government, that the Biden administration would have to challenge and stand by the traditional OLC opinion that the president can't self-pardon is to file an indictment and have the president demand that it be dismissed on the basis that he's pleading a pardon. You have no mechanism to challenge it unless you indict him, and so you thereby establish the precedent that the president can do it, or at least you leave the question open. So my question is, would that actually, if you were Attorney General Preet Bhargava, would you feel more compelled to bring an indictment if the president had tried that shit?
I would not. First of all, again, I don't think that keeping the pardon process safe and legitimate is really an appealing agenda for the Biden administration. I think it's too abstract, really, to do what they want to do. I'm not sure whether or not it's a political question, and I'm not sure whether or not, and by that I mean whether it falls into the category of issues that the courts will refuse to resolve. And if they'll say, maybe this is illegitimate, but that's not something for us to resolve. That's for voters to resolve, and so forth. I don't know that this Supreme Court, as newly constituted, would come out the way that the Biden administration would want it to, and it would ultimately get there for sure. So I think that there's a whole lot of hunger to use the power of the federal criminal justice system to make up for some of the terrible things that have been done. I think that the criminal justice system is a really terrible vehicle to do that. And what we would have to give up in terms of bandwidth given to other issues and things would be extremely costly. So, no, I know that some people says that means we're letting the bad guys get away, but you've always got to say compared to what. And I think the compared to what here is potentially too overwhelmingly all-encompassing.
Matt, is this a retributive justice situation, or is it a looking forward, not backward situation?
Looking forward, not backward. But I don't think it's just that. I basically agree with everything Ken said. I don't think there'll be a federal indictment for a few reasons. One is that I think politically the Justice Department probably won't want to spend the entire first term having to deal with this, because it does. An attorney general who's having to deal with this, it does spend a lot of political capital that you could otherwise use to make really important substantive criminal justice changes. I mean, that was the story of Eric Holder's time at DOJ, where the entire first term we were dealing with Guantanamo and KSM and torture and all these messes, and couldn't get to the stuff we wanted to do until the second term. But I also think that the thing that relates to that is part of the reason we won't spend the capital to do it is you have to actually go in and initiate investigations. It's not as simple as if there were something, if I thought there was something pending that was an investigation of the president that was working its way through the system that the attorney general just had to say yay or nay on, that'd be a different question. But the Mueller stuff has been closed. All evidence seems to indicate the SDNY thing has been closed. So starting a new investigation, I think, is an entirely different matter. And to your point about the pardon, I think it increases the likelihood of indictment. I see your point, but I don't think I don't think it tips the scale, because it's kind of separate questions. You can think that what the president did was constitutionally suspect and still decide that that's not a reason to bring charges that we wouldn't otherwise bring just so we could challenge it. Maybe OLC writes an opinion that says we believe that the president's pardon was invalid. We believe he doesn't have that power. And if there are ever reasons to bring charges against him, his pardon won't slow us down.
I mean, I don't really want to give him an excuse to play a victim anymore either. Like, I know that you want to bring this hammer down on him, but I feel as if it's what is the opposite? When people say the opposite of love isn't hate, it's indifference. And I kind of feel like the thing that hurts Donald Trump the fucking most is just being irrelevant and not paying any attention to him whatsoever. And I think that actually, not obviously do whatever justice requires and make the decisions and balance the equities where you need to in terms of the resources you have with the Justice Department. But I don't know.
Mr. Botts, the floor is yours.
Hi.
Good afternoon. Great to see you all. I have a very difficult question that I would like each of you to individually consider. The challenge is you have so many to choose from. Over the last 4 years, what constitutes your favorite felony that you have observed?
Now, does this have to be one that someone was charged and pled on, or was convicted of?
It can be perceived. I perceive emoluments or bribery or...
I just want to say the Flynn kidnapping of Gulen plot, which was, to be fair, never indicted, but was reported in the Wall Street Journal. I claim that one. That's my fave.
You go first. I'm still thinking.
Yeah. So the best funny thing, Lev Parnas and Eir Furman. I'm already forgetting. I'm not using his name on TV all the time. Getting indicted for fraud involving a company named, I think, Fraud Guarantee.
Fraud Guarantee.
Pretty good.
I have to admit, I have this soft spot for Jacob Wall. Okay, I believe in his hero's journey to become a real boy and commit and be indicted for a federal crime instead of just 3 so far state ones. He's got 3 states so far. Sooner or later, he's going to be able to spell something interesting with the acrostic. But here we've got a kid who, was banned from an industry before he was 18. A kid who just the other day was in court with his buddy, answering questions in a civil case about things he got indicted for in a criminal case the next day, who holds press conferences and driveways. All these, he's just the perfect hero's journey towards an eventual big-scale federal indictment. I believe it'll happen. I believe it at my core, and I want to be there to watch it.
Kate, do you have a favorite felony of the last 4 years?
Well, I know it's kind of painful now, but Stone.
Yeah, he was awesome.
Yeah,
Threatening Bianca the dog.
I just remember I went through this phase where I was just I'd watched Angels in America and read the books, but I watched Angels in America and really saw the depiction of I was just fascinated by him as a human. And then I just feel obviously Roger Stone is a derivative of that, and so then I became fascinated with Stone, and so I don't know, and then it was just so sweet when it finally happened, and then so just turns to sand in your mouth when it was all over. But yeah,
imagine a caper movie where Randy Credico is the stable one.
All right, Doug.
Can I add a second
Yep.
answer too before Doug?
Please.
The Elliot Broidy situation has always to me been the most fascinating of the sort of second tier scandals because it has everything. It's got foreign lobbying. It's got a sex scandal. It's got Saudi princes. If people haven't spent time looking into the entire Elliot Broidy scandal, it is the craziest. I think it's the craziest of all the Trump scandals.
I think you just gave me my Wikipedia hole for the evening. Thank you.
Yeah,
And there's also, Bannon being arrested on the boat is pretty damn good,
I was just
too.
going to bring that up. I was like, that was
because,
all right.
Because Broidy's lawyer called me to complain about something I said about him in a story once. So
Excellent. Doug, the floor is yours.
Hi, can you hear me?
Indeed.
Hey, Doug.
Hi. So I've been pondering my question for a number of days, and since Ben on Rational Security said that politicization in a hypothetical Biden administration would be a top issue to be thinking about ahead of time.
Well, depoliticization in a Biden administration.
Sorry, yeah, exactly right. Or yeah, and then would be perceived as politicization.
Yes.
So that brings me to my question. I believe it was maybe earlier this week or last week. What is time anymore? Trump on Fox Business and probably since then has pressured, ordered, urged Attorney General Bill Barr to open an investigation into Joe Biden and Barack Obama and Hunter Biden. And my question is, if he doesn't do that before the election, then how does that comport with his belief in the unitary executive theory? Would that make him a deep state bureaucrat going rogue and subverting the will of the American people as expressed by their duly elected president? So I just wanted to know your thoughts about that. And should I be keeping my eyes peeled for an indictment of Joe Biden before Tuesday?
Dude, a foolish consistency is the hobgoblin of small minds.
Do I get CLE credit for getting this question right? I literally just feel like I got cold called on my own show.
All right, what do you guys think?
Wouldn't his technical answer be the president hasn't ordered him to? Yes, the president
I think that would
has
be
the
his
authority
technical
to direct
answer.
me, but all he's done is bitch on Twitter.
Yeah, and
Right,
I think
exactly.
he would also say, as long as the president doesn't order me to do it, the executive branch hasn't taken the position, and if the president orders me to do it, and I don't think a lawful argument could be made to a court, I would have to resign.
Yeah, it's
So
the
that's Barr's
standard.
weasel out.
It's the standard Trump flunky answer, right? The president has strong opinions, which he voices strongly. It's how he connects to the American people by demonstrating his concern for their issues. People, and then, basically the take them seriously, not literally type thing.
All right, James Heckle, whom I have repeatedly tried to bring on screen and keeps vanishing, is going to be here long enough to ask his question.
He can't hear. He doesn't have a thing.
Speak though. Can we hear you?
I have no sound.
No,
We can hear you.
But he can't hear us.
If you can hear me, I'm going to ask the question. Is Ben a good lawyer?
No, he's a shitty lawyer because he's not a fucking lawyer. He's not a lawyer. Ben, you're not a lawyer.
I'm not.
Compared to what, though? Like, compared to Michael Avenatti? Compared to,
Compared to Rudy?
Yeah,
I am a terrible lawyer. And the reason I am a terrible lawyer is that I don't have clients because I would hate them. I would disserve them because I don't really care about client service. And the essence of good lawyering is doing what's in your client's interest, not what seems like fun to you.
But Ken seems to have a lot of fun screaming at people to shut the fuck up. Like, that's what he does with all of his clients all day. Like,
it's more fun to get
talking,
paid, too.
Stop moving. Stop, yeah.
I mean, with practice, I've crafted ways to say it slightly more diplomatically. But, yes, so, a big part of lawyering is having this advice that's sometimes very hard to get through to people with and finding ways to put it politely in a way that builds them up instead of tearing it down. And then, just going home and taking it out on the kids.
That's why God made belts, Ken.
Yes, and vodka.
I would be a terrible practicing lawyer. I would have been an excellent law professor, but the actual practice shit where you have to actually consider whether it's in somebody's interests for you to make a particular argument, this just wouldn't be me. Glenn Christman, the floor is yours.
Oh, okay. Hi, can we hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Indeed.
Okay.
Rather loudly, in fact.
My apologies. I have to try. I'll speak more quietly. Actually, I think you already answered my question, which was dealing with Jacob Wall, who has been charged with apparently felonies in 3 states. I had put down 2 states. But I was just so impressed that he was charged in Ohio, which is my state. I feel much closer to him now, and I'm with you. I'm plugging for him to hit that big boy crime. So.
Yeah, so you've expressed your admiration for his struggle, Ken, but why do you give a shit about this kid?
Just because he's like a cartoon character. He's such a perfect imbecile. He's just like, this
like Bart
carefully
Simpson?
coiffed idiot, just drifting through life, showing how if you have a little money and you're white, you can get away with an enormous amount of stuff. And it's just like, it's like seeing a roller coaster going up a really, really, really steep hill inexorably. You just increasingly enjoy the thought of what's going to happen when it crests, about how fast it's going to go on the way down. So
do you think if he's not the son of a prominent Southern California lawyer, he has a different trajectory so far? Is it a rich white kid thing, or is it a child of the legal fraternity thing?
Not a child of the legal fraternity thing. We get all types. I think it's sort of partially a MAGA thing and partially a personality thing. His dad seems to be super Trump star. And it's not that all Trump supporters are crooks. It's just that there's a sort of, everyone who criticizes what I do is a libtard type of mentality that plays in very well to Jacob's approach to life. And so I think he thinks that it's going to continue forever to be this sort of thing where he's endearing and he gets cheers from the Trump people, and it's it's entertaining, so it's not criminal because it's on TV. And sooner or later, the wheels are just going to so conclusively come off that wagon for him that it's going to be a real shock for him.
All right, Tony Cava, you get the last question before we go to Kate's subject that she has reserved for the last 10 minutes. And not even I know what it is.
Excellent. I will make this one fast one, but it's for both you, Matt and Ken. Matt, you look like a Japanophile, so that's awesome. That's rad. I just want to say, ask, I'm wondering that whatever release it was that Rudy Giuliani signed in order to appear in the Borat film, did it cover actually both the living room and the bedroom?
That's so.
Let me just say that for reasons I cannot explore, I'm familiar with the quality of releases drafted by Sacha Baron Cohen, and I think they will hold up.
Are they well done?
They are adequate to the occasion. For someone considerably craftier than Rudy, let me put it that way.
It's not like fraud and inducement or something?
So they
sorry, not to make it all.
So let me
legal.
ask a related question. Let me ask a related question, because I can't answer this one, but I can ask a question. Presumably, they got him to sign a release for the interview he was doing with the character playing Borat's daughter, right? And that's how they.
And then got him to hang
obviously,
out.
They obviously didn't sign one afterwards.
Yeah.
So you've seen releases from these people before in oh my God, I'm blanking on his name. You know, the junior high fan, Roy Moore. The releases they do are very cleverly drafted, such that if you cared and read them carefully, you would realize something hideous was about to happen to you on camera. So I have not specifically read this one, but if you read it with a suspicious mind, these releases these people tend to do, you tend to come away thinking, what exactly is going to happen? Am I going to, get painted red and violated by kangaroo on camera or something? Because that's the way the release comes out if you read it carefully.
Kate?
Oh, I wanted to end with like a nice story or like something. I don't know, because I just can't handle anything anymore. So before, when you guys were talking, Matt, you were talking about how you have boring election days because you've done all these campaigns, but you're always like have nothing to do, so you're sitting around just waiting or anything. I was just kind of curious, like maybe you don't have them, but people in the audience can add theirs. Do you have like any particular really good kind of personal memory of an election day?
I mean, 2008 was pretty good. I wasn't working for the Obama. 2012 I was.
Who were you working for in 08?
The DSCC. 2012 I was with the Obama campaign in Colorado, but we sort of expected to win.
Yeah.
2008, when I was at the DSCC and we won 8 Senate seats and Obama won. I mean, getting reelected is one thing, but an election where you take back the presidency after everyone has memory hold this now, but a pretty bad presidency, at least in my view, in the view of 70%.
I wrote in my diary in 2004 that it was the presidential election of my generation that would define my generation. 2004 did not define my generation.
and if you want to talk about bad election nights, I worked on the Kerry campaign and was in Florida where our last poll had us winning the state by 3 points.
No, this is happy stories. Stop it.
That was a bad election night.
Ken?
So I took my son to vote for me, not for me. Okay, I did not just confess to a federal felony. I took my son to vote with me.
Someone get Mike Chase.
In 2008, and we watched the returns, and I think we've kind of gotten so used to things that we kind of passed by how significant it was. My kids aren't white, and to see that we had reached a place where someone who wasn't white was, and who was, had the middle name Hussein even, was elected president of the United States, was very big and significant in ways that I think it's easy to put behind us. I think we as Americans, like, we have these gigantic social changes, and the next day, okay, that's old hat, that's nothing. Whether it's gay marriage or whether it's an African American elected president or whatever, these watershed changes, and then it's no big thing the next day. But that was a big thing, and I liked being able to say to my kids that it's not all just sort of a story, that anyone can become something here.
Yeah.
My best election day memory, actually it's not true, but it was cool, was the day I tried to commit voter fraud. And I actually tried.
Like for funsies, or because you were like, what's the
because
statute of limitations on this, Ken?
Ken, I was like, Ken,
I did not.
Do you need to retain Ken so he can tell you?
No, I do not. First of all, any statute of limitation.
We lawyers here, and we all destroy each other's privilege.
Matt is not a lawyer. Matt's a flack.
Wait.
Matt's,
I'm sending you my wire transfer information here.
Yeah, okay. This was a long time ago. And by the way, on advice of counsel, I did not do it. So I am free to talk about it. As some of the viewers of this show know, when I joined the Washington Post editorial page, because the slogan of the Washington Post was democracy, not then democracy dies in darkness. It was an independent newspaper. I thought I should change my voter registration as an editorial writer for the Washington Post from Democrat to Independent, which is an act of self-disenfranchisement in the District of Columbia, where the Democratic primaries are effectively the election. But I tried to do it, and the next time I went to update my driver's license, get a new driver's license, under the DC motor voter law, I asked to have my voter registration changed. Instead of changing Benjamin Wittes, who then lived at 2237 Observatory Place Northwest, to an independent, the DC Board of Elections and Ethics, in its wisdom, added a new voter to the rolls. Benjamin Wittes remained a Democrat. Benjamin Sittis, Sittes, was added to the rolls as an independent. Now, he also lived at 2237 Observatory Place, and he would get his voter registration mail from the DC Board of Election and Ethics, and I would regularly report him for attempted voter fraud to try to get him removed from the rolls. And the DC Board of Elections and Ethics, in its wisdom, refused to remove him from the rolls and kept sending him voter registration. So after this went on for years, I finally decided I was going to receive a ballot for Benjamin Sittis, spoil it so that I would not be actually voting illegally, and then write a column in the Washington Post entitled, "I Voted Twice Today," by way of outing Benjamin Sittis and exposing him to the world.
I love that you want to ruin Mitch McConnell's life for infinity, but you would literally hand voter fraud to Republicans on a silver platter.
Well, voter fraud
Washington
was
Post.
not quite the public issue then that it has become. And so in an abundance of caution, I called a friend of mine who does criminal law, and I said, how big of a risk would I be taking by doing this? And this person said to me, that is a felony, and it is a felony of precisely the type that will be prosecuted. And so Benjamin Sittis did not receive a ballot that day, and about 5 years later, he was purged from the rolls in a routine sweep. And that is the end of the story of Benjamin Sittis. He is my fondest election day memory. And by the way, I did verify with the DC Board of Election and Ethics recently that Benjamin Sidis never, in fact, voted. So this is an example of precisely the sort of thing that Republicans call voter fraud, and that is, in fact, harmless.
So basically, you committed attempted voter fraud.
No,
Oh my God,
I
he got you.
sought advice of counsel about
But when
whether
does-
to commit
When
voter
does it
fraud.
taken
When
a
does an
substantial,
attempt truly
Yeah.
begin?
a
No,
substantial step towards
Wait a minute.
steps.
What substantial step had I taken other than thinking about it?
Well,
So you didn't think about this at all before you didn't
Got the
walk
ballot.
I
any
sort
place
of
to see where you could
planned
drop
the
off
column in my head, and before I took any substantial step, I called my friend and said, would this be a problem? And he was like, are you fucking kidding
No,
me?
I love this story because this shit is exactly something I would do. This is
And I did
like-
exactly what you would want me to do, Ken. I checked with counsel and I followed counsel's advice.
Oh my God.
I didn't shut up about it, though.
Okay, you only get one slap. You don't get two.
Yeah, exactly. Oh,
Ken
man.
White, Matt Miller, you're great Americans, and it's great to see you both. Remember, this too shall pass, and I am confident in Jacob Wall that he will get over that top of the roller coaster, if only to please you, because he has such a desire to live up to your expectations,
As you should.
as he should.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks
Ben.
for joining
Kate.
us. We will be
fun,
back
guys.
tomorrow. We don't know do we know who's on the show tomorrow?
Alex Petri is on.
Alexandra Petri, and we have to pair her with somebody
find
serious, or
I was
with
thinking
somebody
high
who's
school SCOTUS, but we can discuss.
um,
Maybe like someone more serious than high school SCOTUS. So we'll see.
somebody who's got to be election-y kind
That's
of. But that will be in any event 22 hours and 58 minutes from now. And until then, Kate, we don't have fun anymore, and we don't have sleep either. So go
know.
get some.
No, I have to go do a panel
Oh, no.
for on half a bottle of wine and 48 hours of being up. It's gonna be awesome. Tune in
Have
for In Lieu of Decency in just 1 hour, like down the hall at the National Constitution Center.
Yeah, just warning to any of you who work for the National Constitution Center, Kate is punch drunk and sleep deprived, but still
I'm
rearing